but we're going to start with the second one because it was an instant classic and a game that will be talked about for many years to come. Final score, Houston 70, Duke 67. The Blue Devils were up 14 points with 8:03 to play, up 9 with 2:06 to play, up 6 with 34 seconds remaining, and still lost the game. Outscored 25-8 the final 8:02, outscored 9-0 in the final 33 seconds. Norlander, good to see you. How wild was that?
Well, GP, it's great to see you. We're coming live. For anyone listening after the fact in the morning, we appreciate you. It is 1:03 local time as we're live here. GP just did stuff on set. I did some HQ. I'm still going to finish this column here. But this is why I love doing this show. It's why I love covering this tournament. I'm still truly trying to process what I just saw there, right here in front of me on this court. It's just there. Houston's ability to refuse to die is not something that's new. This has been a fundamental feature of this program for years and years and years. It really has. Doesn't mean that Houston can't be beat. It can. But if you're going to beat Houston, you're going to lose some vital organs along the way. And most of the time, you're just not going to do it. You're not going to be able to beat this team. And what they were able to do here and just rip the life out of Duke, a Duke team that, GP, I'm going to give you the vibe in the building as I'm sitting here on press row when it went down. Duke, the Duke side was over there. Houston was here. On a personal note, I talked to Jim Nantz a little bit before the game. Said hello at halftime. Matt, what are you thinking? Well, Jim, it's good that it's 6 instead of 10 right now. He still had a belief, and sure enough, as the clock was ticking down, we locked out. It's not as romantic as I'm about to make it sound, but we literally
it sounds really romantic.
Literally locked eyes, and the joy in this man's face. Really, really happy for Jim. I know he got plenty of camera time, but I'm just telling you, before we got to that moment, this building was prepared for what seemed inevitable. It just felt like Duke was going to eke out this game, figure out a way. Flagg hit a 3 on that side of the floor that felt like 4 when it went in. He had the block on this side of the floor. It just seemed like they were going to have just enough. Like Houston's still tugging the rope, and they're still tugging the rope, and it's just Duke's going to be able to make this happen. Proctor doesn't make the foul shot. Obviously, you've got just stones free throws from Juwan Roberts. You had the JoJo Tugler play, which was the technical. I'm not gonna call it the most unlikely comeback ever, because statistically it's not. GP, I'm just telling you, I just don't ever think that I've been in a building where the feeling of which team was going to win the game more violently swung in a shorter period of time on the game clock than this one. And there's a lot of reasons why it happened. But I do think, and this is going to be part of what I write here, so I'm still even building out the column, and who even knows how the hell this thing's going to read. The things that gave us concern, and if you want to even use that word, or just reason to speculate on Duke's national championship prospects back in October and November. Duke was not the preseason number 1 team or 2 team or 3 team, was that they had a hell of a lot of talent, but they had a lot of young guys. They didn't have a lot of collective experience playing together, and they lacked that year-over-year continuity in ways that Houston really exposed. Houston was not as talented as Duke, but it was a whole hell of a lot older. They had a whole hell of a lot of guys that have been here for multiple years. I have a line in my story from Kelvin Samson, who told me before the game, we can't match Duke in talent, but we can match them in length, and damn did that wind up being a huge factor in the final few minutes. This was a stunner. You got to have 2 to tango. It was just as much of a Duke collapse as it was a Houston comeback. I remain astounded and impressed by Kelvin Samson's team's ability to just refuse to die. Parrish, I've never seen anything like it with a college team like this. It's just year over year over year, and they dragged them into the pit of hell and said, we're not dying. It's not going to be us. You're going to lose this game. Sure enough, they did it. I want your thoughts and how you took in this game and what it felt like. Obviously, you did the show on CBS Sports Network, removed from the arena. So what did it feel like to intake this from the broadcast end of it? Because sometimes those can be slightly different feelings versus being inside the building.
It was a weird game because, just for transparency, we've got a green room in a convention center right outside of our set, and we all gather in there and watch the game together. And so we're all watching this game, and I know it ultimately got to a point where it looked like the old veteran, tough, physical team took advantage of the young guys. But it didn't look that way for like 32 minutes. For about 32 minutes of this game, it looked like Duke was just, well, one team's got pros and the other team doesn't. Every time Houston got a bucket to make it feel like, okay, here, maybe they're getting back in it. Cooper Flagg 3, Conklin 3. It was just like, boom, let's kick it right back up to 8 or 9, get comfortable again. And it just sort of felt like Houston is awesome. Houston is tough. Houston could probably beat any other team in the country, but I don't know if they're going to be able to get this done. And then it's like, okay, now it's within reach. Okay, whoa, it's really in reach. And then it just, like, it really went from even with 2 minutes to go, this is still fine for Duke, to what just happened. And in that way, it did feel a little like Kansas-Memphis in the same building back in 2008.
Great call.
Except that the Kansas-Memphis thing, that collapse happened really over just a span of a couple of minutes at the end. This was building toward it for 8 minutes, and then it just splashed. And I don't want to say that I've never seen anything like it, because as you know, I don't even remember all the things that I've seen. But
Correct.
that felt like, I'll just revert back to what I said earlier. It felt like this is a game we're going to remember forever. The next time Duke is in a big spot, we'll reference back to it. Jon Scheyer, until Jon Scheyer breaks through and wins a national championship, he will have to talk about this game forever because, and then I'll give it back to you, like I said tonight on CBS Sports Network, this is not the NFL. This is not the NBA. You don't get to just run it back. Like how many times, because it's well documented now that John, leaned on Brad Stevens a little bit in terms of roster building philosophy. And the interesting thing I gather from that is like Brad Stevens was coaching a team, running a team. How many times did they not get where they were trying to get with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum? Like a bunch. You could count it when you're, wake up tomorrow. But eventually you just keep running it back. It's like, we got our core. These are our guys. We're going to try it again, and eventually it happens. You don't get that in college basketball. Hardly ever, and definitely not anymore with few exceptions. Jon Scheyer knows, and you can see it on his face, hear it in his voice when he was talking to Tracy Wolfson afterward. He had one shot with this team, and I'll put it as simple as this. He had the best team in the country according to the predictive metrics, one of the best teams in the past 3 decades according to KenPom, the best player in the country, and you're up 14 with a little more than 8 to go and 9 with a little more than 2 to go. You have got to win that game. You've got to close that out, and when you don't, it hurts, and you will carry that around forever.
Here's a couple quotes from Jon Scheyer. Quote, "It was just a matter of our guys. They didn't want to lose. And the key thing in those games is playing not to lose, but instead playing to win." I mean, shoot, these games are as tough as can be. But, yeah, it's just something where in those moments you have to double down on who you are, have to have that leadership on the court, have to have that toughness to get a stop. Because we had a couple plays that were 4 or 5 point swings. Those swings can seem small in one play. I'm continuing Scheyer here. But you do a few of them, and it changes the complexion of the game. And then they're playing with free money. You give them credit, but they're playing with free money. You know what that is? It's a quote I haven't used all season. It's what Jon Scheyer told me when I sat down with him in October when he talked about playing NC State and losing last year in the Elite Eight. And it applies what happened here tonight against Houston. Different team, different situation. The bittersweet thing, if you want to call it that, about Duke is that Sheyer's gotten better with each passing year. The team is going deeper into the tournament, and the way that Duke is getting knocked out of this field is getting more excruciating with each passing year. If the pattern continues a year from now, I don't even want to imagine how Duke would lose in a national championship game in that scenario. But they've progressively gotten deeper in the bracket, and the losses have been even worse. And by the way, for folks watching live or listening, we are going to have another podcast on Sunday to preview all the title game stuff. So this is very much react and respond to what happened in front of us here. It's more looking back and doing all that. The preview stuff is going to wait for the Sunday show. Let's continue on Duke before getting a little Houston. Obviously, we're going to give the Gators plenty of love. Cooper Flagg had a tremendous game. Let me toss it back to you real quick. Personally, now, I didn't love the play for his shot, but as seen on James in the locker room after, he said 100 times out of 100 we want the ball in his hands with that shot, more than okay with it. I wasn't at the press conference, but I think they were mostly okay with it. It wasn't a miserable design or anything like that. I just wasn't expecting Flagg to quasi-settle for what was a 15-foot fadeaway jumper with Roberts having his hand in his face. So before we go a little bit more on Duke here, any issues with the play or even beyond that, GP, were you expecting that kind of action, that kind of set, that kind of look in that huge spot when obviously Duke needed the bucket to get a chance to win?
Well, I don't like anything that's going to get you in a situation. Cooper Flagg and Jawan Roberts is there to be able to contest at 15 feet. Like if that's, I don't want that. This is the best basketball player in college. There are times, you'll know what I mean. There are times when a ball comes out of somebody's hand and you're like, okay, that's it. That's the shot. That's what they want. And when it came out of his hand, I was like, who knows if it'll go in or not? But I was like, I don't like that shot. Keep in mind though, and early in the season when there were some Cooper Flagg skeptics that existed, it was late game stuff that, he fell down a couple of times or whatever. He would dribble too little too much. And here he was in a situation, and it's easy to point to as a bad shot or not a great shot or whatever, but think about it from this perspective. He was an 18-year-old literally playing against 22-year-olds and the best defensive team in college basketball. Like, I never thought he was going to get a great shot, if I'm being honest. I didn't think he was going to get a great shot. I thought he was going to have to make an incredible play, and he's capable of it, but he didn't do it there.
He didn't do it there. It's not all on him. In fact, he had himself a really nice game. Again, let's keep it more Duke, and then we'll get Houston love. Up and down the Duke situation. Flagg, incredible, 27 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists. Actually became the first player ever in a Final Four to lead his team in all categories, because he also had 3 blocks and 2 steals. There had never been a player in a Final Four game that led or co-led in all 5 categories. He did that in this game. The over the back, from my angle, actually,
I did not like that.
So how about this? So, and if you can't really see if you're watching, you listen, let alone, but my angle here, like I've got it right on a 45-degree. I actually, in real time, it looked like a good call from my angle. But then when I went back and watched, I didn't love it. I don't think it was egregious, but it sounds like you thought it should have been a play on.
I would have let it play on. I would not have. If you put, like, I'm not an official, obviously. I'm only a doctor, not an official.
Correct.
But I would not blow the whistle there. I'd let that play. I don't want to blow the whistle there.
Okay, fair enough. And even if they don't blow the whistle, no guarantee that Duke wins. But obviously that foul, like there were just 6, 7, 8, 9 things that were going Houston's way. Go on down the list with the team. Proctor misses the foul shot. We go back to the stuff in the early part of the season. All right, can Proctor be that guy? 7 points, 2 of 8 from the field, and boy oh boy, missed the front end of a 1-and-1. That was big. Knipple, I thought for the most part was pretty solid overall. He had bigger moments in the first half than the second half. Kaman Malawat,
awful
playing 21 minutes. It was a no-show, and I will give the idea that Houston could keep a 7'2" dude who had been wreaking terror more often than not. 0 rebounds. Zero rebounds. Him and then Sion James didn't have a great game. I didn't even love the maybe they were trying to avoid getting fouled, but like they had 3.7 on the clock, and like even the play here, like he's throwing it, and it was like throwing chum for the Sharks. Like Houston gets the tip, Duke doesn't even get an opportunity there. It is fair, and I think, and I did watch Shire's interview with Tracy GP. It is fair to criticize him for how he mishandled this down the stretch. Kelvin, now some of it was pure like vintage Houston grit and gumption. I get that, but to me it felt like Kelvin outcoached Shire down the stretch, and they got tight. And there's a few stats here that they might refresh overnight, but I believe now Duke was 2-4 this season. Games decided. Maybe you even talked about this on the postgame show, GP. I think 2-4 in games decided by 7 points or fewer this season. Duke was now 1-4. Let's see, when it played a top 20 defense, something like that, or 1-3 now. 1-3. Houston, meantime, is now 9-2 against top 20 defenses this season. It absolutely felt to me. Now the players got asked this, the ones that were in the locker room. Duke kind of kept Kahn and Cooper, kept them sequestered from any more questioning in the locker room afterward, because they kind of bled the clock there, so we didn't get more from them on this specifically. But to me, it felt like Houstonness, if you get what I'm saying, and Duke's lack of consistently playing teams at this level in tight games, I actually think it mattered, and I think it affected some of what Shire was doing from an approach there. What are your thoughts?
I think it mattered, and Kelvin Samson, in his own words, addressed it afterwards. He was talking to Tracy Wolfson. I'm not sure if you saw that, but Okay, so it was great. Kelvin said, listen, we were never down 20, and we weren't even playing well. So I'm just telling my team, like, we've been here before. We're not even playing well, and we're not down 20. And if we can get this to a point, we're not there yet, but if we can get it to a point, we can put game pressure on them. And that's where he stopped his sentence, his thought, but I'll continue it. What I took from that is, and I don't think they can handle it, or at least I think they might not be able to handle it. They're younger than us, and they haven't been through this stuff like we have. And and if we put them in a situation where they feel like they are on the verge of maybe a collapse, they might just collapse. And there was a moment, and I'm not trying to get into anybody's head, but it felt like with a little more than 2 to go, they were trying to run the clock out. It felt like they were just trying to get it to zeros. And because there was a moment, it was me and Brent Stover and John Rothstein sitting together, and Duke got up pretty good to the point where I actually said this out loud. Do you think Duke could win this game without scoring another point? Like, are we there right now? Can Duke win this game without scoring another point? And then they end up losing the game by 3 in regulation after scoring more points. It was an awesome comeback, but aided by, I've always believed this, whether it's Memphis, Kansas in 08 or tonight. You can't have these types of comebacks without it also being a collapse on some level. The other team's got to contribute to it in some level, and Duke contributed to it on some level. And you heard John in his post game. I thought he was really good. I thought he handled it beautiful. I thought he handled it as well as you can handle it as a young head coach who has been just eliminated from the NCAA tournament in horrific ways in back-to-back years. I thought he handled it well. But among the things he said to Tracy was, I don't think I helped my guys enough down the stretch. And I bet he feels that right now. And if you're looking for a bright spot, I think this is it. And I said this on TV tonight. We just watched John Shire do a really tough interview with Tracy Wolfson. You could see it in his face. You could hear it in his voice. He will talk to her again at the Final Four. I promise you. And they're going to have a happy conversation at the Final Four someday. I would bet a lot of money on it, but it didn't happen on Saturday night.
Yeah, that's good perspective. Yeah, I mean, John really does carry the job very well and does a good job with it. And I think he would be willing to admit that there were some misfires there. It's funny you mentioned about that on the Duke end. Now, having seen how this game played out, there were just a couple of possessions here. I specifically remember one where Sharp was coming up the floor. I want to say there was like a minute 15 left, and they're down 7 at this point. And I'm thinking, it's not over, but let's go.
Right.
Let's play with some urgency.
Right.
And they had it. So let's transition, I guess, to Houston here and try and keep the show moving so we don't run too late. Boys got to still file a column over here. Just a few things on the Houston side. The fact that I'll just kind of roll them off and you take it where you want. The fact that they still won the game despite the super weird technical, rightfully called, against Tugler was crazy. The fact that you've got the second most popular podcast, not as popular as ours, trying to distract me while I'm doing the show here. They're done. See you later, number 2. Thank you.
Yeah, tell them. Ask them when they're getting a billboard in Times Square.
That's great. Yeah, GP wants to know when you're getting a billboard in Times Square. That's what I thought. Okay, thank you. So, so then we get Tugler, we get Cryer with 26, and he was phenomenal. In fact, he had a couple of bad plays all night, and he was incredible. And
hey, Rob Doster,
he can't hear you, bud. And
that's like my favorite. Or my, it's like one of my. That's like one of my. Oh, look who it is!
Yeah,
it's Parrish.
Yeah, it's
hey Gary.
Yeah, it's a live show.
What's up with you? How are you?
You've done this before.
Yeah, I did it on his show once before, so he's getting me back there. It's live podcasting. It's okay. It's okay. So you had Cryer, who was 26 and incredible, and it gets a little bit overlooked in some of this to a certain extent. But Roberts to hit the foul shots in that spot was massive. And then he gets the hand up on Flagg. Sharp had some huge buckets down the stretch. This is just one of the more impressive wins on a Final Four stage that I can ever remember. Ever.
It was awesome. And I don't say that. Sometimes people get real weird when we talk about, oh, he thought Houston coming back was awesome. He must hate Duke. I mean, just stop it with all that stuff. Here's the truth. I have known Kelvin Samson for a long time, and I've known John Shire for a long time, and I like both of them immensely. And as happy as I am for Kelvin, like, I don't want to get hyperbolic here, but, like, I feel sick for John. Absolutely sick. You only get one shot at this with this team, and he was in a position to win the whole thing, and he left you hanging. He left you hanging.
Fanta left me hanging. Fanta. It's all right. Here we go, bud.
I got you.
Appreciate
What's
you.
up, GP?
He says,
"All right, John Fanta." That's the legend, John Fanta.
GP says that. This is about as live podcasting as it gets, by the way. So it's all
right. Had a nice night with Matt Norlander and John Fanta and my beautiful mother at Lionel Richie.
That is correct. We don't even have time to get into that, but that completely happened. Will Forte and I might be friends now, but let's keep it moving.
Okay, so it was awesome to see Houston do what it did, to do it 3 hours away from its campus, to see Kelvin have that moment standing on the scores table, dancing in the locker room, and I love that they did it the way they did it, because there was a moment with maybe about a minute left where they're down, I guess it's 6 at that point.
Yeah,
and
I think 6.
And I think a lot of coaches would have fouled there to try to stop the clock and extend the game, and he played it out, and they got to stop, and then they come down. And I think it looked like a very questionable decision in the moment to let it play out, as opposed to, you might want to get a foul here. Stop the clock. But he knows his team. He knows his team. He knows his team better than all of us watching. He knows what they're capable of. He trusts them to go he trusts them to go win the game. We don't have to extend this. We can get this done right here. He trusted his team to make big plays, and there's a big shot from Sharp. There's the missed 3, and then the putback dunk from Joe. It was just an awesome, awesome display. And now you watch this, and I know I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but I don't know that if most people understand this. The national championship game is about 50 times easier to get into than the national semifinals, because you have 2 fan bases that want to go instead of 4. And whenever you get one fan base close to the location, here's what's going to happen on Monday night. Here's what's happened tonight, and here's what's going to happen tomorrow. A bunch of Auburn fans and a bunch of Duke fans are going to throw Final Four tickets on StubHub and SeatGeek and wherever else you can put them. And guess who's going to eat them up? Houston fans. And they're going to make that drive over on Monday afternoon, and that place is going to be a real home court advantage for the Cougars on Monday night, I assume. And it's just sort of interesting because they had to play the Sweet 16 and Elite 8 in Indianapolis, where they were at a disadvantage from a crowd perspective. And now, one win away from a national title, they're going to have the biggest crowd on Monday night.
All right. You're right. And we'll talk more about that on Sunday. I think the single craziest stat thing about this game to me is this. Duke is going to wind up with the most efficient offense in a single season in KenPom history. It's going to beat the Wisconsin 2015 team that also did not win a national championship. So you're talking about a team that, within the context of the season, was better at scoring than any other team in any other context of any other season. Duke had 2 baskets in the final 12-plus minutes. It only had, I think it had Flagg hit one with like 10:31 to go, and they only had 1 field goal after that. And Houston shut them down. It's unreal what Houston did to turn off Duke's water and win this game. That's the biggest among 3 dozen takeaways. It's the fact that they were able to do that and really shrink Duke down to a size it didn't even know, and to expose its inexperience, and to make Duke play off balance for more than 25% of the game in a way they just had not felt the entire season. Nothing like this Houston team, man. Super, super, super impressive. It's a tough end for Duke. You got to figure that starting 5 is all done at the school. They rebuild, they start over, but Shire's still going to be there. He's the one that's going to carry this with him next season and beyond. And yes, the nature of this loss will stick with him until, at minimum, he finds himself coaching on a Monday night in April.
I know the final minute of a game is wildly different than the opening minute or even the opening 8 minutes of a game, but I did like what I'm about to tell you is true. It took Houston 8 minutes and 9 seconds to score 9 points in this game. To get to 9, it was 11:51 when they got to 9. And then in the final minute, they scored 9 points in the final 33 seconds.
I love that stat. Hold on. Literally say that for me again because I'm putting it in the column.
Okay, it is, and you don't credit. Don't screw your column up with I own. Just keep it yourself. It took them 8 minutes and 9 seconds to get to 9 points in the game, and then they scored 9 in the final 33 to complete a 9-0 run to win the game in regulation.
That's just
that's what they call a nugget.
That's a hell of a nugget. That's a hell of a nugget right there, and that's how you move on to Monday night, man. Just awesome stuff. You want to talk Gators?